Hello, everyone, and welcome to our information session for Via Carmen Pythia, the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple's 2-year Sibyl training program. We are really excited to come to you today and go over the structure of the course and our philosophy and some details, and then, of course, answer any questions that come up. So welcome. I am Priestess Devanna Wolf, and I'm here with Yeshe Matthews, our Mandala Priestess. We designed this course and have been teaching it since 2020, and we're just thrilled to welcome a new cohort of students into our program. All right, Yeshe.
So this is our daily practice that we do as Sibyls of the Temple. It is a prayer that was written by the late Jade River, who was the founder and priestess of the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess International, which has one of the oldest and most established priestess training programs in America. And this is a set of statements that we all commit to as part of our practice. There is one circle of women's energy, and I am a part of this energy. It is mine to direct. I wish to direct my energy to know that I can create my own reality and that sending out a positive expectation will bring a positive result. That the energy which I send out returns to me. That there are an infinite number of possibilities for my life. That every situation is an opportunity to practice and develop my craft. That my instincts and intuition can be used to guide me. That my only power is in the present. That the goddess of life force energy is within me. To will that I shall never use my energy unwisely or to limit the free will of another. That I shall grow in wisdom, strength, knowledge, and understanding. That I shall, as much as I am aware, act in honesty to myself and to others. That I shall never use my energy for evil, aggressive, or manipulative ends, and shall only use my energy for positive purposes. That I shall grow to understand the cyclic, life-affirming rhythms of the earth and always act with love toward her and all her plants and creatures. That I shall transform all negative in my environment. To dare to be myself, to take responsibility for myself and my actions, and know that consciously or unconsciously, I have drawn situations to me. To be strong and independent, even in the midst of a struggle. To accept and understand those whose ethnic or racial background, social or economic class, appearance or sexual preference are different from my own. To stand firm and committed to women and my spiritual beliefs, even in times of isolation, pain, desperation, or negativity. And to understand when to speak and when to keep the silence.
And now, both Yeshe and I are going to share with you our personal Sibylline vows that we took as part of our formal dedication in this practice. My Sibylline practice is dedicated to the goddess Sophia, goddess of wisdom. Hail, Sophia, full of light, source of creation, all-seeress, cosmic alchemistress full of love, goddess of infinite wisdom and infinite possibility, I dedicate my sacred vision as a Sibyl to you. I vow to be a truth seeker, spirit receiver, and transmitter of knowledge in your name. With compassion, strength, and kindness of heart, I will serve those who wish to see clearly into the many mirrors of their destiny. May your divine spark always reveal to us the truths we keep in light and shadow. I will always hold with integrity the highest good of those who seek my Sibylline counsel, for the benefit of all beings. This I vow.
Oshun, queen of honey, queen of witches, who brought the arts of divination to humanity, to you I dedicate my practice as a Sibyl. By the power of your magic, your whispers in my ear, I make my living and serve others with my psychic gifts and prophetic arts. Called to your path by my sixth sense, following my inner knowing, I honor you with each divination I cast, with every truth I share, and with the thousands of prayers I speak. Guide my mystic visions, make my words as pure and clear as fresh water. Protect my health, secure my prosperity, and infuse your sweetness in my life. In return, I will sing your praises and perform readings in your name until the day I die. Our program is rooted in four main priorities: the animistic, the historical, the female-focused, and the personal. And I thought maybe I'd just break these down a little bit before we get into the program content, because these four guiding principles are the underpinnings of everything that we do. So in my studies of shamanism, I've learned that animism is the belief that an object, a plant, a natural place, an animal, or another physical, tangible thing can have a spirit. And sometimes that is an indwelling spirit, such as the spirit of a tree or the spirit of an animal, or you might feel a certain energy from a stone. And sometimes that spirit was invited to be there, such as inviting an ancestor to guide your drum or to guide your tarot cards. This dual approach to animism, the inspiriting of our sacred tools, is part of the tools that we're going to be gathering and collecting and then using throughout the next 2 years and beyond. They are ensouled, some because they came that way, and some because we're going to be inviting our guides and our spirits to dwell within them. We also take a historical view of the different types of divination that we offer. It's not enough for us to understand what we're doing. We want to know why we're doing it. Who did it before us? Where can we make that connection back across miles and across generations to find the people who invented these different modalities or received them, and how they used these modalities and why they decided to do things the way they did them. Through getting into the heads of our historic predecessors and the ancestresses of divination who came before us, we are able to walk in step with them and better understand their minds, which helps us attune our own minds to being Sibyls as part of a very ancient lineage of women on this planet who have served as prophetesses and oracles. And that brings us to the third point. Our work here is specifically female focused. The temple holds a belief that women have a connection that either is innate and natural or has been conditioned over millennia, but that either way, whichever has caused it, it doesn't really matter as much what caused it as that we have inherited this legacy. Women are historically the most prolific of prophetesses, fortune tellers, seeresses, and guides, often unacknowledged. We'll be studying several known women who were prophetesses, sibyls, pythias, and oracles of their day and in their respective cultures. But each of them only represents, or each of them represents thousands of other women who went unacknowledged. Our female focus in this program gives homage to all of those who went unnamed, as well as those who were named, and honors the innate divinity in all women, which is something that goes often unaddressed or given less focus than the male in our culture. And finally, our program is deeply personal. We're not here to tell you what to believe or what to see. Rather, we're here to show you how we see, why we've evolved, the practices that we've evolved over our collected almost 50 years of experience, how we came to the conclusions we've come to. We have anecdotal and personal information, and we're here to help you bring forward the personal in your own divinations, so that when you see certain symbols, you know what they mean, not because it said so in a book or online, but because you've lived it, because you've seen it yourself with your own eyes. This kind of approach helps you make your divination system entirely your own. There's so much that's important about this, not the least of which is stepping into our own authority. But I'd like to also say that if all of us read the exact same way, we would never be able to read for each other. There's a beauty in the innate personality of each Sibyl's individual approach that is uniquely hers. And when we are able to work with other women who are of like mind or experience and see things through their lens, it helps us grow, it illuminates us, and it gives us a chance to focus on what we would like to be as Sibyls. So even though we will study in a collective format and we will have practice sessions and we'll help you connect with each other to have practice and encourage you to go practice on others, we're really mostly interested in what is arising within your view as you express your unique vision of our world and its workings.
This program is so unique. You know, we've all been around the internet for, well, a couple of decades now and have seen a huge renaissance of magical, divinatory, and occult practices sort of come into what is almost a mainstream. But this program is really different from the average class, course, or series that you'll see being offered online because it's so immersive and it is spread out over 2 years, which, you know, some people might feel like that sounds like such a long time, but it's really a commitment to yourself more than it is a commitment to the course or to us as instructors. It's a deep immersion for your own spiritual and psychic development. And the level of work that we do in this course is really equivalent to a master's degree in divinatory arts. It's, I am so proud of it, and I know Yeshe is too. It has even deepened each year that we offer this course. You know, it began as a pretty immersive and exciting program, but has deepened and become even more rich and nuanced. And I just think it is such a special experience and such a special community of women, of magical women. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else like it online or in person. All right, Yeshe.
So one of the things that guides us, and a term you'll hear us use again and again, is personal gnosis. And personal gnosis is that awakening, enlivening, informative awareness that just arises from within. And it helps each of us to develop an inner lexicon or dictionary of symbols that will inform and inspire us. So, for example, You know, an apple might mean three different things to three different people. For some person, one person, it might mean, oh, something that you give a teacher. And so the symbol of an apple in a reading might mean a gift in exchange for knowledge. For another person, the apple might represent Eve and original sin and the story of the fall of the Garden of Eden, fall from the Garden of Eden. And so the apple might represent to that person a kind of a dangerous temptation that has the potential to change everything. And for yet a third person, it might be a memory of sitting and eating apples on the front porch of grandma's house as she would just peel them with her knife and hand out slices to the kids as they would come in and out of the house. And so for that third person, the apple might symbolize ancestral nourishment, going to your ancestors for what you need. The ability to go really deep into your inner lexicon of symbols, and to understand why you think what you think about symbols is going to create a bridge between you and the book knowledge of the symbols, which we will also be teaching. In personal gnosis, there are truths that can be known and truths that can be sensed. A truth that can be known can be followed by proof. For example, I might see something in a dream or a vision, or I might have something come up in a reading that then can be proven out later. I can look it up, I can inquire with someone. Someone might come back to me and say, oh, what you told me is absolutely right. Those are truths known. And then there are truths that are sensed that maybe we can't prove, but that make sense to us and that we have good reason to believe. Again, some of those might arise from personal experience, but others might come from an overarching sense of understanding that we are tapped into something that is much larger than ourselves, that is older than ourselves, and that sometimes it's not us that knows, it's the knowing that knows. And the knowing is expressing itself through us. We are sensing that knowing, but we might have a hard time proving it. And so our personal gnosis means to balance those two things, what can be proven and what can't be proven, but still can be sensed and known. We put a lot of value on wisdom earned through experience. As we go through the course, one of the things that you'll find is that time and again, we have stories and narratives that emerge about our personal experiences as readers. A time when this happened in a reading, a time when a client asked that question, or a time when something came up and it was just so oddly specific that now it's locked in. The wisdom that we earn through our experiences as diviners gives us that connection back to personal gnosis. And then finally, we have the deliberate assignment of meaning. In some cases, it's that something means something to us because we have decided, we have chosen. And so when we give that deliberate assignment, heretofore, this will, or from here forward, this will mean XYZ, that empowers us to steer the direction of our lexicon. We're not merely recipients of information. We're also co-creatrices with the universe of the future. And so as our predecessors, as the Delphic Sibyls, as the many Sibyls of the ancient world and prophetesses, oracle bone readers, Saith practitioner vulvas, and others who have come before us, sometimes we're aware that we are deliberately assigning a meaning to a symbol in such a way that it will steer our vision of the future. So personal gnosis includes all of those things, and all of those things are very important to us.
One of the overarching themes of Via Carmen Pythia is learning to inhabit the role of a seeress in your daily life as you move through all of the activities and the thoughts and the obligations that come with living in this world. We are not always, you know, slinging cards for answers on things, but we learn to attune our senses so that we always have access to that sort of extra cognitive level of information receiving. So each module that we study, each different technique of divination adds to that overarching sense of how we move through the world as receivers of information. Information from spirit, information from nature, information from all of the beings and entities that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's one of the most special things about this program is we're teaching you each of these different modalities, but the real thing that we're teaching you is how to be a seeress in every fiber of your being.
We work with 4 different seasonal elemental animal guides during the first year of this training. And then those elements will carry forward into the second year when we won't work with animals anymore, but rather we'll work with goddesses. But in this first year, we kind of go through each season with its respective element. In the season of air, January, February, and March, we work with the owl as the symbol of to know in our daily practice prayer, to be the one who is the wisdom bearer, to be the one who can see in the dark. In our fire quarter, which is April, May, June, each of us works with an apex feline or big cat. We each have different ones. Some people are leopards, some people are panthers, some people are pumas, cougars. For me, it's the cave lion that's now extinct, but came to me in a vision and rocked my world. And that is our to will. In our daily practice prayer, we talk about that power of the Sphinx, to will. And the apex feline is that one who is the mistress of her own destiny. And she takes on the responsibility for plotting a course for herself and in the world for others, as a leader, as an oracle, as a guide, as a partner along the journey. In the fall, July, August, September, we work with the element of water, and there we invoke the dolphin. That is the animal after which the sacred city of Delphi is named, sacred to Apollo. You can see in Delphi, when you stand on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, all the way out to the sea. And in times past, the sea was higher and the sea came up closer, and people could stand on the slopes of the mountain and watch the dolphins frolicking in the waters below them. The dolphin represents to dare. It's the playful quality, the intelligence, the educated guess, the ability to make conclusions even when we don't have concrete information. And then finally, in our Earth quarter, the winter, October, November, December, we work with the serpent. And the serpent is that keeping of silence, moving quietly, knowing what to share and when to share it, knowing when to hold back and maybe not share something if a person isn't ready to hear it, honoring the ethics of being a psychic, wherein we don't, blurt things out to people that they're not ready to hear, allowing ourselves to be invited in to give our information and our wisdom, and also the ability to transform things on subtle levels in the world around us, to transform through our magic, to transform through our words, to transform through our readings, and to transform through even just our quiet sacred presence.
As with all of the immersive trainings that the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple offers. Via Carmen Pythia is a program that deeply honors the ancestresses of our collective past. As Yeshe mentioned in our intro, we are honoring and lifting up the memories of women who performed divination, who were seeresses, prophetesses, women who many times went against the grain of their cultures and communities in order to share their gifts with the world. So that is a really important quality of this program and our philosophy behind it. And we also, as we move deeper into the training, touch upon goddesses who were associated with divination or the prophetic arts. And this is sort of like circling wider and circling deeper to embrace all of us, to embrace us as modern Sibyls and all of the ancestresses that have contributed to this lineage of women gifted in the psychic arts. So the goddesses themselves really inform and encircle our whole practice and our ethos in the program. So I think it's really exciting that we go from our animal spirits and the elemental animism of the first year into these really deep, personified divine elements to kind of guide us into the true sacredness of our practice as Sibyls.
And I'll just add that depicted in this slide is an image of the students of Isadora Duncan. Isadora Duncan was an ancestress. She's one of the ancestresses that we honor in the temple. And she was a dancer who went to Delphi and felt so moved by the columns and the architecture, the mountain landscape, the energy of the sacred site, that she danced there and taught dance there for many years, so much so that the Sikolos family built her a private amphitheater. And when we go to Delphi for our graduation trip, usually in the second year, we go and we actually dance the Delphic maxims. We dance the oracles into being in one of the places where Isadora Duncan herself danced. So the one-on-one guidance that we offer as part of this program is actually really valuable. It's where things get really juicy for you in your personal practice. Our group classes will be about technique and practicing. They'll include some, some short lecture as well as lab work where we're going to be hands-on, just doing the divination modalities and sharing together. Then each month, you'll be given a special code that you can use to go into our calendar systems and book a one-on-one session with one of us. And you're welcome to decide if you want to go deeper with one of us, that's fine. You can do that if you feel like one of us has expertise in something that you really want to learn or you really resonate with her style, then that's who you'll book with. You can also just alternate back and forth. We each have very unique approaches to these different modalities. And what we're here to do is to sit there and really go into the symbolism that's coming up for you, how you form your technique, the giving you feedback on the accuracy of your divinations and helping you increase that accuracy and specificity over time, in large part helping you learn to trust yourself more and in helping you to feel like you have a supported sacred space in which to really unfurl the fullness of your gifts. Sometimes we perform better with somebody in front of us who kind of gives us that little bit of an edge And so it's important for us to note that for some learners, the kinesthetic learners, that hands-on approach is going to be really powerful. It's going to help the information to pop for you. And for those who are more, book learners, you'll also have the readable lessons. For those who are more learning by observing and listening, you'll have our class times. We try to make sure that there is a modality in every module for every type of learner, because we all learn in different ways. For example, I'm a very kinesthetic learner. You can show me something and explain something to me a dozen times, but until I've put my hands on it, I can't really figure it out for myself. Maybe you resonate with that. And so you might feel like, oh, you'd like to book a session with me so that I can kind of help you get up to the elbows in a modality. For other times, you might think, well, I'm really interested in the history of this. I feel like I have a connection. I feel like I might have a past life in this, paradigm where we're studying. You might decide, I really want to go book a session with Devanna because she knows a lot of the different historical elements of that particular practice, or it's relevant to her. She's talked about it a lot. So however you decide you want to schedule your one-on-ones with us, really make them work for you so that you're getting the most out of the training and the opportunity to really dive in and unfurl all of your psychic gifts, allow them space to exist.
And now we come to the super fun part, the work and its tools. I don't know about you all, but I am a collector of decks and tools because it's like magic in your hands, right? Um, I love how we move through different types of tools and techniques through this course. We will have specific divination tools for probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the different modules. And these are totally up to you to choose your own. Sometimes Yeshe will have resources for specific types of tools like our oracle bones or things like that. But this is sort of the fun part, that you get to shop for fun new tools to learn these techniques. So, yeah, be prepared to sort of like explore in the realm of finding tools that really speak to you or resonate with you. Etsy is a great place, of course, and Yesha has a lot of resources from her store, The Sacred Well. So, yeah, we're happy to sort of give you suggestions and guide you toward tools that we think will work really well with our modules. But this is definitely part of the creative fun part for students and practitioners, is sort of exploring and finding those tools that really excite them. And so now we're here at the actual content of the course. So as Yesha mentioned, we in year one, we've divided up the curriculum according to elements, animals, and seasons. So January through March, we're working with the air element and the spirit of the owl. We are looking at astragalomancy, specifically using dice. And astragalomancy is a form of sortilege. So that just means sort of casting a tool into our space and seeing what comes up. It's sort of random and sort of guided by spirit, but that's how we open the whole course and series of modules. In February, we move into cartomancy, which I think probably most of us have at least a little experience using tarot or oracle cards, which again is a form of sortilege, but with more of a narrative fluidity to it. In March, we're moving away from handheld tools and moving our vision out into the world with ornithomancy. And this is the observation of birds and their behaviors, which is a deeply historical mode of seeing. We may not be aware of it, but some of the earliest known recordings of divination techniques had to do with observing the flight of birds. So that's sort of a fun digression into nature observation and divination. So in April, we move into the element of fire and working with our big cat energy. We start off with pyromancy, which is divination by fire. So this includes candle flames, this includes cauldron fires, and also just observing how the fire element acts and behaves in our environment. Um, so that's also like a really potent elemental practice. In May, we move into ceromancy, which is sort of like the sibling of pyromancy. And this is working with wax as a form of divination. So this has to do with observing candles, how candles burn and behave. It includes pouring hot wax into cold water to see the shapes that form. This is actually one of, I think, Priestess Yeshe's signature techniques and one that we rely on a lot in the temple. And then, of course, figural candles, where we're actually burning a candle in the shape of the image or the situation that we're addressing in the divination. Then in June, we move into runes, which is more of a metaphorical fire technique. The runes are one of the ancient sacred alphabets that we work with in this program. So we'll learn about the meanings of the runes, the history, and also how to create our own runic techniques and how to create bind runes. And then in July, we're moving into the element of water and the spirit of the dolphin in our practice. Our first foray into the water element is with scrying. And with this technique, we're using water in a bowl. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Pythia bowl as we move through the descriptions here. But basically, we're looking at water as a reflective medium, as an elemental mirror to stimulate our psychic vision. In August, we move into oniromancy, which is the interpretation of dreams. So this is actually a really unique practice. It's not just looking up symbols in a dream dictionary, but it's learning how to navigate the dream space in addition to sort of developing our own language in the interpretation of dreams. Then in September, we move into tasseomancy, which is perhaps the most contact elemental practice we do, which is reading the tea leaves or the coffee grounds. So the nice thing about this is you also get to have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with your practice. So I think it's a really wonderful, comforting, down to earth sort of practice and study. Then for the end of the year, we move into the element of earth. And in October, we're going to study mediumship and enthusiasm. So mediumship being opening ourselves to be a channel of information for spirit, for ancestors, for otherworldly sources of information. And enthusiasm is actually the practice of transpossession. So allowing a spirit or a deity to come through us and provide information or messages. So that's a really deep and exciting practice for October, for spooky season. Then in November, we move into osteomancy, and this is divination with bones. So specifically in our temple, we use what is called shagai. And these are a traditional shamanic tool made out of the knuckle bones of ungulates. And there's a whole language of the four different sides of the bones that can come up and how you interpret the combinations as they are cast. We'll also talk about other forms of bone divination and how to combine the bones with perhaps other charms that will enhance your practice. And then in December, we are circling back into the world of nature again for a pantomancy. And a pantomancy is actually broadly the observation of natural phenomenon. But in our temple, we're really looking at the animal kingdom as a whole and how animals move in and out of our world and our psychic space and what kinds of messages they have for us. So that's year one in a nutshell.
And then in year two, we go again kind of loosely through the elemental cycle, but this time we've kind of added in a few other aspects, especially at the end, that are designed to help you bring all of your study together. So year two is really about taking everything that we learned that was very foundational in year one and then building upon it. In January, we study aeromancy, which is actually the study of weather patterns. And in our training, we pay a lot of attention to clouds. And in this particular form of divination, we're also working on mitigating weather with our magic. That's actually partly one of the things that we hear about the ancient Sibyls was their ability to summon or banish a storm. And so working with a meteorite as part of our weather mitigation, as well as reading into the weather, what is it that the atmosphere is trying to tell us? In February, there's a really great book Devanna introduced us to. You get this book secondhand, I think. It's called Your Days Are Numbered, and it's a wonderful numerology book that takes you through some very practical applications of numerology. In March, bibliomancy is the study of random passages from books. So you'll find three books that you consider mystical, three books that you consider magical guiding books, and then working with bibliomancy to connect with answers, to connect with certain words or the ways in which words are put together so that you can sort of read deeper into the meanings of language. In April, we do psychometry, which I think is one of my very favorites, where you learn to read antiques and ancestral objects by holding them in your hands. And every year, the results from this class always stun people because it's just such a unique tactile modality, and psychometry was developed as a science rather than as a form of divination. It's now a form of divination, but like alchemy, it was originally developed as a science, and that lends something really interesting to it. And that carries us into astrology, also developed as a science that now is used as a form of divination. And for astrology, we're very practical. We want you to have the tools you need. We're not calculating charts by hand. We want you to have apps, books, other supports, but to really start to see how astrology and factors that are related to astrology, such as human design, all kind of come into this overarching idea that there are things that are determined by fate, by the cosmos, and that those things provide a basis for us of understanding, not necessarily as a form of prediction or limitation, but it can be, but rather that these factors provide us with freedom, because once you understand what you're dealing with, you have so much more agency and power. In June, we make our own divination arrows and we practice bellomancy, which is a shamanic form of divination that can be done with an arrow, and it can also be done with a traditional drum beater if you have a shamanic drum. In July, we move into dowsing and we use a pendulum for yes, no, maybe, ask again answers. And we also work with dowsing rods for both directional answers as well as yes, no, maybe, and ask again answers. And dowsing provides a really great way to get clarity. Yes, no, maybe, try again, within the larger narrative forms like tarot. So dowsing would go really well along with, say, tarot, or along with astrology, or any of these other, modalities that are more kind of set in stone. Ovomancy is in August, and we learn to do a traditional limpia, the cleansing with the egg, which is done, today largely you see it in Mexican communities, in Latin American communities, but it also was done in ancient Slavic cultures, in ancient Rome, and goes back a long ways, not only with an egg, but with other types of materials. And so in ovomancy, we're pulling negative energy off of ourselves. We're investigating what's going on by reading the contents of that egg after the cleanse. In September, we work with lithomancy, in which there will be a pouch of stones that you'll collect, crystals, stones that you have from your property, stones from places you've gone. It's all different kinds of stones as a way to do particular types of readings. And then we kind of expand and extend that in October into geomancy, arguably the most basic and at the same time the most complicated form of divination that we study. It is inherent in every type of divination that we do in some way. And at the same time, it is uniquely its own with numerous different expressions. So that's where we conclude the study of the modalities. Then in November and December of your second year, we actually spend the time building what your unique Sibyl session is going to look like. The session that brings together for you the modalities that you have found to be the most important, with ideas about how to weave in some of the modalities that you might not use every time, but that you still want to be open to, and also give you techniques for coping with the modalities, kind of stashing away the modalities that didn't appeal to you in such a case that they might be needed in the future, which has happened for numerous of our students. They'll come back and say later, oh, when we studied this, I didn't really get it, but now that I'm doing this other thing, that came back. So in those last 2 months, we do our Sibyl session planning, and we also teach about the business of being a diviner. What are the kinds of things you're going to need to think about as a professional diviner, if that's the direction you'd like to go? What kinds of things you're going to need to think about if you're mostly doing readings for friends? How to hold good ethics and boundaries? How to know the difference between what you want to say to somebody that you know as advice versus what's actually appearing in the divination. So those last 2 months are a lot of queries and questions around establishing one's ethics and practices overall, so that one can bring together all the different modalities that you've studied into something that works and feels right for you.
Along the lines of collecting tools and accessories for this program, this year we have something new to offer, which is really exciting. One of our priestesses in our temple, and also a current Via Carmen Pythia participant, Priestess Linda, paints these incredible, very realistic animal eye stones. You can see some examples that she's got here. But she has offered to paint one of these eye stones for each of our 4 guiding animals for the first year of the course. So you can see we've got serpent, cat, dolphin, and owl here. Um, so if you're interested in getting a set of these Pythia stones, we will put you into contact with Priestess Linda so she can arrange that for you.
And Linda's so great because she'll want to know, like, what kind of owl, what kind of big cat, what type of snake, so that you can really personalize it, maybe by connecting with the animals of your own region, or if you've seen particular animals in a dream, like if your owl is a white owl versus if your owl is, a burrowing owl, she'll go and study the actual eye of the type of animal that you feel resonant with. So we love hers, and I love my set of animal stones from Linda. And then we also have this dedication set that we are very lucky to have Priestess Devanna make by hand for members of this training. There is 3 out of the 4 items are depicted here. One is a candle scribe, which is that pointy object at the bottom that you see. At the top, it has a spiral or loop. And that candle scribe is for use writing in your beeswax candles, writing in your novena candles. You can use it to inscribe sacred symbols into wax tablets that you might want to create to give somebody as a prescription for a reading. Like, for example, if there was a symbol that came up for someone, you might give them a piece of wax, write something in it with your scribe, and then tell them to go home and melt it. And then to use the wax to seal something important. So there's lots of different ways your candle scribe might be used. And the candle scribe also represents the traditional staff or litus held by the Vestal Virgins. And we also have serpent bracelets. They come in silver or in bronze, and those are, or silver or brass, and those are also handmade by Priestess Devanna with this eternal knot snake as part of it. And then there's the third thing that you see here, which is the serpent-footed bowl. And this bowl is made hand hammered by Priestess Devanna and is treated to look like the bowls that were held for scrying by the ancient Sibyls that we can see in some of the vase paintings from ancient Greece. And we've also put kind of our own flair into it. And then the last item that isn't depicted here is an owl necklace. It's a necklace that has an owl, and the owl is holding a little metal disc, which has a stamp of our Sibyl symbol with the moon, the star, the serpent, and the bay branch. And so these are the symbols that kind of you would sort of give to yourself as part of your training and as part of your commitment as a Sibyl. And most of the women in our temple have gotten these and work with them together. And it's so lovely. Like if we go on pilgrimage somewhere and we all are wearing our bracelets or we're all bringing our bowls, it just makes it really beautiful, and it's very uniting. And it's really rare to get metal tools and pieces of jewelry handmade for you by a priestess who is knowledgeable about the ancient symbolism that went into them. And speaking of which, I'll take us through our last slide here, which is that we have graduation and dedication. At the end of your second year, if you are interested in doing this, we take our students to Delphi and we graduate the students. The students can take their vows on the slopes of Mount Parnassus. So we go to a private amphitheater that was used by Isadora Duncan for her dance. We stand on the slopes of the mountain. We do an entire week-long Sibyl symposium where we go around to the sites of the oracle at Delphi and we study and we learn about and we practice divination in those places. We work with our tools, we work with cards, we bring our stuff with us, and we are in Delphi being Sibyls in the modern world. And we take Greek dance lessons, and we create a beautiful final presentation that we do that's just for us, where we make our own garments, we wear our hand-dyed purple veils, we go out and we practice the maxims, we do our divinations for each other, and we take and witness each other's vows. And for those who are not able to attend, that we also offer an online option to tune in and take your vows while we're in Delphi, so that you can still be there at a distance if that's, better for you. We know that sometimes you've got kids and jobs and, aging parents and other things that might prevent you from being able to come. But we do highly recommend that from the get-go, when you start your training, if you think this is something you'd like to do, to start putting aside for it and carving out the time for it. It will normally happen in October of your second year. So now we're going to just move into a little time for Q&A. We're going to turn off the recording, and that way, if folks want to just say hello and have a little FaceTime together, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching.